Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 2017 ERP Trends. My name is Julie Blankenship, and I'm a Senior Marketing Manager at Macola. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing some of it with us today. Now, with that said, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's webinar. Our first panelist is Dan Griffin, Director of Product Management and Product Marketing. Dan is part of Macola's senior leadership team. As Director of Product Management and Product Marketing, Dan guides the vision of the Macola product line and serves as one of the many primary representatives of the Macola brand. Prior to joining Exact, Dan spent the majority of his career at IBM, serving in both marketing and technical roles. Our next panelist is Derek Oakes, who is an IT professional with over 15 years experience in software engineering, enterprise architecture, and IT management. From writing code for successful startups to managing enterprise-wide IT teams for Fortune 500 companies. Prior to Exact, Derek was the manager of data integration for eBay for 9 years. Next is Steve Featherston, pre-sales. Steve has been with Exact for 4 years. Prior to that, Steve managed the implementation of Macola for many of Exact's customers. Prior to Exact, for 16 years, he worked in 3 different companies, all using Macola. Before this, Steve owned his own business for 22 years in the consumer electronics industry. Next is Bob Combs, pre-sales. Bob is a seasoned professional with over 34 years of industry and 19 years Exact ERP experience. Prior to becoming a senior business consultant, Bob served as an Exact consulting manager and senior consultant for over 10 years and held several industry positions in engineering, quality management, manufacturing operations, and configuration management. Bob is also a veteran of the U.S. Navy and is a certified ISO lead auditor. Lastly, we have Nick Mears, Senior Product Marketing Manager, who has 10-plus years experience in technology in B2B and B2C and public and private sector marketing. Nick's background includes a tenure with both marketing and PR firms, serving clients in technology, software, healthcare, financial, and manufacturing, including companies such as Abbott Laboratories, Eli Lilly, Nationwide, and Ashland. With that said, I'd like to hand this off to Nick to get us started today.
Wow, that was amazing, Julie. You can now take a breath after all of that. And I just want to thank all the panelists online, and I especially want to thank everyone who's attending as well. We appreciate your time and your willingness to share it with us. We feel we've got some good content here, and we're excited to share about it. Now, I did want to tell you real quick, if you're wondering about Macola, what Macola does. Macola has been around for over 40 years, having served over 8,000 customers. And for Macola 10, that's our product we are most excited about. It is all-inclusive and scalable. You can grow into it for no additional module cost. We believe you should have more functionality. That's our goal here. Okay, now the commercial's over, so let's dive into the trends here. And this is actually a panel discussion, so you might hear people jumping in, and we're hopefully it won't be too confusing, but we're excited just to kind of have a new type of webinar here where 3 or 4 people might comment on one of these trends. So first trend, we're looking at intelligent ERP. Here's something. By 2018, 35% of line of business leaders will demand intelligent enterprise applications to improve business processes and resource utilization. This is from IDC. I thought this was really interesting, which leads us into this trend. Intelligent ERP, automated workflows, more than just collecting data. It's setting up actionable triggers for select events. So let's get started off here. And Bob Combs, can you kick it off here? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Well, I just wanted to start out with automation. Automation is certainly key in automating processes and activities in today's world. It's going to continue to be a key requirement into the future, I believe. Additionally, having an ERP solution capable of delivering such automation effectively, consistently, and efficiently is also key. the more we can utilize data and data sources and data elements and proven, and I underscore proven, ERP interactions to drive automation, the more we can allow companies, individuals to perform other required tasks. And ultimately, the goal here is to reduce overall company cost. Every day, as a consultant in industry, I run into various clients that require automation and desire automation, and these can take the form of financial, operational, or pretty much any other triggered event that you can really think of, such as some examples would be such as automatically, electronically emailing invoices to customers, acknowledging orders that you see a lot of companies doing in today's industry, and producing emailed required reports out to internal and external sources, whether or not those reports have to do with sales or other portions of the industry that you're in, and really literally hundreds of other things that you pretty much can think of can be automated in today's environment. So anybody else have any thoughts on that from the panel?
Yeah, this is Derek. I think that when you think about making ERP more intelligent, the thing I think about when I think about automating things is this idea that industry is moving more towards like just-in-time decision making. So you want to move your decision as close as possible, or at the last moment possible, so that it avoids additional costs, additional legwork, things like that. So I think you're going to see a lot more proactive, like alerting of things, like letting somebody know before something bad happens, like your inventory is getting low, let them know beforehand. A customer's approaching their credit limit, let them know ahead of time, so that you might want to talk to them about that. So I think you see a lot more of those types of things where we're trying to let people know before something bad happens versus reactive types of decision making where you wait till something bad happens and then you try to patch it up. So.
Yeah, this is Steve. I'm seeing a lot of requests for automation and process flows, whether it's tracking a customer's order from beginning to end to your production and shipping departments, or even something as simple as a request for purchase approvals being routed to the correct people. We're seeing a lot more of this showing up in workflows and in automated processes than we've been seeing in the past years. So it really does play a big part in making an ERP system intelligent or working for you.
No, that's good, Steve. And actually, this kind of leads me into my poll question here. I wanted to get your guys' feedback on this, and it's about automated workflows. So I'm actually going to launch it off here. In which area of your business would benefit the most from automated workflows? If you could, on your screen, the poll should pop up. And we'd love to get your feedback on that. What we have here, and I'll read off the results. It should be showing on your screen as well. But it looks like the leader here is at over 50% sales and order processing. That would be benefited the most from automated workflows. And that's followed up by the supply chain. Next is finance and invoicing, followed up by shipping and warehouse logistics, and then production. Well, this is kind of interesting, guys. Do you have any thoughts on this, the results?
I mean, I think that it's not surprising, considering I think distribution order processing probably is the part of the ERP system across all industries people use the most. So even if you're not manufacturing, using those parts of the system. So I guess I don't find that shocking. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see, as people start to expect automation and workflows, you're going to start to see that move into all parts of your system, because people just start to expect it. They're going to say, well, why can't it be routed over to this process over here? Why can't I be alerted about this when this happens? No matter whether it's order processing or any other part of your system. So.
Sure, especially when it comes to sales and order processing. That seems to be a clear interest there. So, okay, well, thanks everyone for participating in that. And that takes us to our next trend, big data, BI. About this, there's a couple quotes here I wanted to pull off. This is from CIO, more focus on the end user, less on the IT. It becomes far easier for the average person. Anyone's able to run reports, pull data. Here's another one. This is by Tech Story. Business intelligence ERP organizations focus more on making better predictions using ERP and BI. BI-enabled ERP applications enable organizations to provide dynamic reporting, providing end users with what they want to see when they want to see it. And I think that's the key there. So this is what we're saying. Data as a competitive edge, a holistic view of company performance, integrated functionality, and real-time data. Steve, I think we're going to let you kick this off.
Great, thank you, Nick. Big data and business intelligence. Well, me personally, and I think we as a group, what we've been seeing over the last few years is that databases keep getting bigger and larger and more complex. Oftentimes the data that you want to be reporting on comes from several different sources. The reporting methods that we've used in the past at this point start to become looking cumbersome and inflexible. They're not user-driven. The user can't really configure them the way that they want. Many of them were written by IT professionals or report writers, people designated to those jobs. These customer reports may have ended up at the end user and may not exactly be what they were looking for or what they pictured, what they needed, and they're not flexible enough that the user can twist them and be able to look at them a different way. The other thing about the reports that have been used in the past to report on the data for businesses is that their reports are as current as the time that you ran the report, so the data becomes stale right after you've run the report. It's not something you can print out and refresh, so a lot of people are looking for more of that. So more companies and end users, what I'm seeing is that they're looking for faster and more intuitive reporting. We've seen kind of a shift towards some of the BI tools, business intelligence tools like ClickView or Microsoft's Power BI, just to name a couple of them, as supporting applications for their business. Tools like these offer views of data that are without the hierarchical structure of past reporting tools. So there's many different data connections, not just looking from like the top down. This ends up giving the end user information that they can then slice and dice and rearrange for their needs at that moment, at that day, that hour that they needed that particular piece of information. Reporting like this becomes something more of a must-have rather than the fixed reporting or templated reporting that we've had in the past through a lot of different ERP systems. So I'm seeing this to become a really big shift, and it's not just in the last year or two, it's been growing. It's kind of a big shift in how people are looking at reporting, and I think maybe you guys would agree. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is Derek. Definitely, it's definitely shifting that direction, and you kind of see this shift. Like ERP originally was about storing data and retrieving data, and then so basically your transactions were kind of mainly what we wanted to get done, because that was the most important thing when ERP started, I think. And then over the years, you got more into, you moved from transactions to interactions and basically workflows and being able to communicate across boundaries and be able to hand off tasks to people and things like that. And then I think that the kind of where everything's settling now is people want to gain insights from their data. So they're sitting on top of this huge wealth of data, and they don't just want to see a report of their data. They want to gain insights. How can I run my business more effectively? Where's my waste at? And answer those kinds of questions. And I think that BI tools are letting you do that. But then you've got this term up here, big data, which is kind of it's an industry catchphrase a little bit. But I think what really the reason big data is such a big deal is that within the past 10 to 15 years, there's been some breakthroughs in technology that allow us to quickly sift through huge amounts of data that in the past were kind of locked up in these giant silos and backups and archives, and it was very difficult to get anything out of there. Well, now you can store data at the lowest possible grain and never have to throw records away and still be able to dig into that data, drill down and find the data you want, be able to aggregate it in all sorts of different ways. And I think that you're going to see a lot more focus in the near-term future around big data on the ERP space, because ERP systems do have a lot of data, particularly if you start pulling in data from like your manufacturing centers where you have instruments that are gathering data every minute about operations and things like that. That's a big data problem, and a lot of times that data can only be used in real time just to monitor and set off alerts. But if you look at historic data, there's a lot of value there too. But it wasn't until recently we were able to kind of unlock that and gain insights from that data. That's what big data gets us, and that's why you hear so much excitement in the computer science world about big data, because they finally can get into this data that previously was unusable.
Yeah, we have a couple of tools. I mean, I don't want this to be a commercial for Macola, but we do support ClickView as well as, to some degree, Microsoft Power BI. And I know that, I guess it was Evolve last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, that we had a session on using Power BI, and people were really interested in what that could do. And then I think maybe last year we did the session on Click. Just that ability to be able to find those nuggets of information and twist the data in any way. I mean, that's where you find some real insights in your data.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's making your data work for you, and see what when you have the power to glean insights from it, it can actually influence results.
Yeah, sounds like a good bumper sticker. Make your data work for you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that's come out of this kind of information technology kind of trend that we've seen recently is there's value in data, and I think that's never become more clear. I mean, people are selling data, people are realizing they have tons of value in their data that they didn't really know was there, and that's what's pretty cool about it. I think it's basically like explorers in a new world. We're able to find out all kinds of things decisions we're able to make, and trends we're able to spot based on data that we were kind of ignoring before.
Oh, that's good. That's good. No, that and actually, I think this is a good segue into from things that may be new and influencing ERP, taking us to the user experience. Just like we're finding new ways for data to have a role, we're finding new ways to make ERP work for the individual. And in this area, we're talking about mobility, accessibility, and responsiveness. Here's a quote I want to pull. This is from CIO. The modern workplace has staff working remotely and outside of traditional work hours. As a result, there'll be a huge emphasis on implementing mobile capabilities. And these are implemented without compromising output storage capacity, but it allows employees easy access to all the information and functions through mobile devices. So we're seeing this shift, this shift in empowering users and improving a user experience. Less working at desk, more outside the workplace. Derek, I'm going to ask you to maybe kick us off here.
Sure. So user experience is another area that across all industries, you're seeing a much more focus on user experience. There's a whole new field where people are specializing just in user experience. There used to be visual designers that would design software, and they would say, okay, this looks pretty, and this is the right font, this is the right color. Well, now it's much more focused on how do I make somebody's job easier to do. So we're focusing less on the software itself and more talking to the actual user that does their job every day and saying, how can I make this person's job more efficient? And how can this person walk away looking really good to their boss, right? That's really what the job of a user experience person is. And when we're looking at user experience, we're looking at several different areas. There's usability. That's the part I just talked about, like how do we make this thing really easy to use. There's accessibility, which in the past was just thought of as, certain people were regulated to make their software easy to use, maybe for a handicapped person. But now accessibility is much broader than that because, if you look at the statistics, the number of people with visual impairment, which visual impairment is basically just like me, you're getting older and you need reading glasses, right? That's visual impairment. So why not make the software so that people can see the stuff easier and just make the whole experience better for them? And then mobility, obviously, is a big part of user experience. People are starting to just demand and expect that they can pick up their phone and have access to their data, be able to do transactions, be able to do things. So particularly in the ERP space, there's a lot of jobs where people have to be walking around talking to people, checking things in a warehouse, checking things on a factory floor. So the mobility is becoming not just a nice to have, but it's becoming a must-have type of thing. And we're investing a lot in that area in Macola because we realize that there's a big demand for mobility. And if you think about it, it's kind of funny because ERP has really been doing focusing on mobility for years because one of the first places to have mobile devices probably were in warehouses where you had to walk around. You had to have a mobile scanner so you could check data on things right away. So we've actually been ahead of the trend on that, but now we need to bring that mobility to all other parts of the organization. And along with mobility, there's this idea, you may hear a catchphrase talked about called responsiveness, and that's basically the ability to create a web page that is viewable on all sorts of different devices. And we've all probably been to the web pages on our phone that all they've done is taken the entire web page and shrunk it down to a microscopic size and you can't even see it. That's not a responsive website. A responsive website means you have nice viewable fonts no matter what the size screen that you have. Buttons are easy to press whenever you have using fingers instead of a mouse. Certain things like hovers and right-clicking on things aren't available on a tablet or on a mobile device. So those are things that are all part of responsive design. And then probably the last part that is really important in ERP is kind of this idea of configuration and customization. That's the ultimate way to make things usable because a lot of times people can't match their business processes to the software. We have to try to match the software to their business processes. So to make things usable, we have to make it configurable so that they can just kind of tweak things to match the way that person does their job every day.
Yeah, I know we've got a ways to go on our usability as well, and I don't pretend that we're anywhere near the end goal there. But I was using a piece of software this morning that had a web interface on it. And it asked me to fill in my information, and there was no save button anywhere. And so I just assumed, it must be one of those things that just saves, by itself, like Google Docs or something. Well, and so I clicked away from it, and then, my stuff disappeared. So I went back to that page. I filled in my information again, and then I realized that, and all this was in like the first 2 lines of the page, after about 8 inches of blank space, in the bottom left was the button that said save. And it reminded me of a conversation that I've had with one of our design consultants. And he was talking about how the intuitive place for the button that takes you forward is right under whatever you did on the right, and it should be colored in a way that it intuitively means go forward.
Yeah, they call it a call to action.
Yeah, it really is it draws you forward into the next step, right? Mm-hmm. Not in the bottom left after 8 inches of white space. And so hearing him talk about that stuff, I've now become much more aware of it. And when I see these kind of situations where I'm like, that's so counterintuitive, I think I'm just becoming more and more aware of those usability concerns. But like I said, I know that we have those kind of things. What do we have, 1,800 screens or something like that in Macola? So I know that not all of those are the most intuitive, but we're certainly working towards that kind of goal of using a natural sort of intuitive flow.
No, that's good. And I was thinking of the results of the poll, how it's automation can help order processing and sales especially. And so the mobile tools can really be helpful. In that area. Has anyone seen any, speaking of these mobile tools out in the field, has anyone seen any good uses of them? How a customer might be using it or how it saves some time?
Of ERP or just of any?
Yeah,
any kind of software.
I know, like when you have automated tools, we've talked about it. How well, even back, not even automation. A salesperson can be checking on his mobile phone the CRM, and in the field, it's linked to the map to where he can go. He can see who his prospects are nearby. He can go make a quick visit if he needs to. I mean, this type of information just saved him. If his initial meeting was canceled, it saved him an entire day, and he can go out and visit either prospects or customers in the same area because it's available mobile. So that's the type of this is kind of what it's talking about is making it useful to individuals within the organization. All right, let's move on to security here. And not that this is new, but it's growing. Here's why. This is from Tech Target. More regulations, rising security threats, and evolving technologies, including increasingly connected and sophisticated ERP platforms, have resulted in application security becoming more critical, but even more complex to manage. I'm going to ask Derek. Can you start us off on this one as well? Oh, I'm sorry. Before this is our take on it: security, business systems, role-based security capabilities at a user level, encryption capabilities. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the previous quote kind of sums it up, where you basically it's a trade-off. So we all have heard the stories about security breaches and things like that, and I think that what's happening is as we become more open and connected, which is great. It allows all sorts of business to flow that couldn't flow before. At the same time, the trade-off for that is we have to worry more about security. We need to think more about it and pay more attention to it. When you think of all the different ways security being compromised, it's just it keeps growing. You've got ransomware, and you've got spyware, and you've got Trojans, and you've got denial of service attacks, and you've got data breaches, right? These are all different ways people are trying to maybe take advantage of a system. But the idea is basically to build in your thinking so that anytime you open a door up, you're thinking, how am I going to prevent somebody from taking advantage of that? So it's really just kind of a mindset. And security isn't just something where you can just assume that your ERP provider is going to take care of it. You're going to assume that your IT guy is going to take care of it. It really has to involve people across the board. Everybody from the person that manages the card key access to your plant to the IT guy that's basically making sure you have patches to your system, to the software vendor that you choose, to the network provider that's giving you network access. So all those pieces, and people have to become, unfortunately, they have to become more sophisticated in understanding that all these areas we need to think about, because in the end, it's not going to matter which level of that was breached. It just matters that it was breached, right? So, and then somebody was saying that the other day that don't just think of security as something where we're worried about outsiders getting in. Nowadays, there's a lot more things being outsourced, a lot more contractors on site and things like that. So you also have to be worried about people walking off with a piece of data inside your system, or just doing something malicious because they got laid off or they just had a bad day. So you don't have. It's not just protecting from the outside; it's also protecting from inside your system.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, everyone always thinks it's outside that does the damage, but internally it can really cause issues, especially if. And we had mentioned, Derek, you had mentioned if it was malicious. Well, what if it was just by accident?
That's a good point.
they were in an area that they probably shouldn't have been, or did something that they didn't realize would affect another area, and that is very that can happen very easily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. Anybody else have anything on security here?
Well, my only comment has to do more, sorry Bob, has to do more with what used to be your traditional ERP system, which most of the transactions are done locally. I mean, you're manufacturing, you're receiving product, you're approving things all internal to a building, and very few of those functions were opened up to the outside world. So, you know, a modern ERP system has to be capable of not only those internal securities for transactions and things inside of the building, but as you open things up to the outside world by allowing web access, you also have to have a fairly robust web platform and securities around that to be able to control and administer what gets done from outside or what the capabilities are. You know, from an external resource, even just an employee, you know, working on the road, as far as them being able to be on a shared Wi-Fi network and information being picked up from that. A lot of regulatory compliances have been written around these topics, and I think it's become a real big issue these days for a lot of businesses. And Bob, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I was going to echo the same thing there that you just indicated, Steve, but just at the screen level, at the field level, all the way out to the document level, what can customers, what can vendors, what can internal resources see? And one change, as you indicated, can drive a change across the ERP system, whether or not that pertains to a inventory item or whether or not it pertains to a bill of material or whatever it is. We have to safeguard our sign-ons and safeguard our passwords. So, okay.
It's all part of opening up, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword. The benefit of opening things up is you there is a lot of benefit there, but there's also the other side where it has to be done carefully and securely. Okay. No, that's great feedback. Let's move on here. Private cloud. There's been a lot of talk, you know, about the cloud, types of cloud, and to be honest, though, sometimes some people may not be completely clear about the cloud and the ERP environment. Here's a quote from Tech Target: licensing software as they would for on-premises use, but running it in a public or private cloud. So, Dan, I'm going to forward this over or drop this off to you now. It's the evolving shape of the cloud. Can not only just private cloud, but maybe just tell us a little bit about this in general.
Yeah, so typically people think of the public cloud as a SaaS-based offering, software as a service. That's your Facebook's, LinkedIn, Salesforce kind of model, which is a SaaS model. That's a public cloud. You're logging into a backend that you don't administer. You're just a user on that system. You don't have any kind of special backend access. On the flip side of that coin is private cloud, which can generally just be thought of as hosting, where you're taking your server out of your server closet, putting it up into AWS or Azure or something like that, and then your machine just resides in the cloud, and that's a true private cloud. I saw a Venn diagram, just a couple days ago actually, that was talking about private versus public cloud. And that article, I don't remember which one it was, but in that Venn diagram, they showed that about 80% of enterprise software is not public or private, it's hybrid. And by hybrid, it can be a little bit of everything, right? So, and that's the model that we are more interested in espousing here at Macola. You know, how do you take some of the benefits of private cloud, which is your own custom environment, something that's specific to you or you're an administrator? How do you get some of the efficiencies of public cloud, like shared databases, things like that? So where do you find the best of both worlds, especially as it applies to enterprise or B2B software? So I think that's one of the things that is interesting. You know, there's a ton of benefits around cloud, and that would be a whole nother webinar in itself probably. But one of the things that I thought about as we were just having this conversation about security is that everybody, or at least maybe a few years ago, and in the manufacturing world maybe still, has this idea that cloud isn't secure, when the fact of the matter is cloud is many more times secure than servers that you own inside your building, or other servers that you're running your applications on. Services like Amazon and Microsoft and Google and IBM, these big cloud providers, I mean, their entire business depends on making that secure. And I'm not aware of any kind of big breaches there. And you don't have the same problems that you do of having that server in your own facility, where your facility can lose power, your facility can burn down, your facility can have someone steal data physically from the machine. So there's a lot of advantages of cloud, and like I said, that's a whole nother topic. But typically what we're seeing in the ERP space is a hybrid. It's somewhere between public and private. It's utilizing the best of both worlds, and generally that's on that hybrid is more along the data lines, right? So how can we share that database on the back end? I think that's really where we get the efficiencies. Derek, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think another aspect of hybrid is there may be components still that remain on-prem.
Oh, so, yeah, that's true.
You may have manufacturing data that's stored in devices or in databases that are local, and those don't fit the cloud.
So it can be hybrid.
Sent to the cloud, right?
Yeah, it can be hybrid in that it's on-prem, public, and private.
Right.
So all three.
Right.
Yeah.
And and along the lines of the security of the cloud system, when you look at Azure, which Microsoft is, I think, on pace to overtake Amazon's AWS cloud system, but they are spending over $1 billion a year on security alone. So that's with a B. So that's an awful lot of investment just in security. And it's pretty cool. They have a whole ops center that basically are monitoring their system, constantly looking for security breaches. And they do some clever stuff. Like I saw recently there was a big hack that happened across the world. There was basically a giant distributed denial of service attack, and the way they figured out where the attack was coming from is they narrowed it down to the one place in the world that wasn't being attacked, and that was where they assumed the hackers were from, and they tracked down the authorities in that country and prosecuted them. So they're not only trying to stop hackers now, they're also actively going after them legally to prosecute them, because they know there has to be a cost to doing that, and that's one way to fight it. And Microsoft has the funding to be able to do that. So that's encouraging to think, because we know all of our data is eventually going to end up in the cloud. It's encouraging to know that there's a lot of investment going on trying to protect us. So.
Yeah, so definitely some benefits of a cloud of any type versus just simply on-prem.
Yeah, I mean the benefits are a lot of people already know these, but it's basically one of the biggest is the ability to scale. So your scalability, where you can, if you need a little bit more processing power, you need a little bit more space, you need a little bit more memory, you can just scale those things pretty much infinitely in a cloud environment because it is distributed. So if you want to have a lot of processing power, you could put 1,000 machines on it almost instantaneously with a cloud environment, as long as you're willing to pay for it.
Scalable.
Yeah,
right.
So scalability is a very big part of it. But there are many others. I mean, obviously, having your data accessible all over the place is another one. The ability to back up things easily is another one. Access to a whole ecosystem of services that you can plug into is another one. If you look at both AWS and Azure's ecosystem, they have tons of services that you can kind of plug into your applications to give you services that would normally involve a lengthy process of installing software on site and buying a license for that. Now think something closer to your the App Store on your iPhone. It's very similar to that, where you just basically pay for the months that you want to use the service. You plug it in and it just works. So those things are making the cloud more and more popular by both the customers and the independent software vendors themselves are also obviously see a lot of advantages to it.
And one of the things I kind of take away from this is that the cloud is splintering with the hybrid cloud. I mean, that some elements are on-prem, some are in the cloud. So it's as it is a drastically, quickly evolving landscape,
Right.
isn't it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I talked to a guy recently from Microsoft, and he said that there was he couldn't think of a single implementation that he did in Azure with a business-to-business type of application that was not some sort of hybrid model, because these people already have typically a lot of infrastructure on site or in a hosted environment or something like that. And in order to quickly move into the cloud, they have to have a hybrid model at least during the interim period. If they, eventually, most people want to move to a full-blown cloud, but it doesn't always happen right away.
Well, and it's what your needs are, right? Customizing or configuring it to what you need. Okay, great. Let's move on here. Traceability 2.0. Again, traceability is not an old term or an old, but it is something that is a new direction that we're seeing. This is from Supply Chain 24/7. Modern demand-driven manufacturers keep a tight rein on product genealogy through workflow systems that track and trace production routing processes, flows using serialization. Such workflow systems are highly configurable to adjust as mandated requirements change and easily pull data from other systems. So this is what we're looking at in Traceability 2.0. Traceability up and down the supply chain, recording, tracking, and reporting quality. But don't forget, there's a regulatory landscape that applies to this as well. And I'm not going to read this off, but I will maybe I'll let Steve take over here.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Traceability is probably a much larger topic than we have time for today. We can certainly touch on some of the points that I've been seeing recently. Traceability is becoming a bigger discussion point with many of our clients, and it's not really just the food industries or the aerospace industries or those technical areas where it affects other people. We're seeing it surface in many other different types of businesses. The requirements for tracking order processing from the initial quote through the manufacturing process and to the delivery of the product is showing up every day. All of this trying to improve, your feel to your customers and your reaction to your customers. But the ability to trace a finished good to the components that it was sourced from, or even from a component to all of the customers who bought the finished goods, is becoming critical in many businesses. People want that type of traceability. It's required for them to maintain different regulations, and although it's been very popular, as I mentioned, in some of the other industries like food and aerospace, we're seeing this showing up in companies that just simply make widgets and make metal brackets and forms of steel. They want the detail of this. So it's becoming more of a business critical need beyond basic quality. And we're seeing a lot of companies, that are ISO certified and want tools to be able to maintain that. So there's a fair amount of traceability in there. I know a lot of our ERP systems and others have got built-in tools for helping people maintain their ISO certifications. And for the companies who are not certified and want to become that way, they're also looking for tools to help them with that. And that all kind of hinges on tracking and quality and all of the other different features that have been required for years for many industries, but we're seeing it become more popular in even simple manufacturing companies that don't have products that would affect people out there, basically. And regulatory compliance plays a big part in it. Data security, as we just talked about a little bit with Derek. There's an awful lot of industries now that are involved in ITAR, which is your international traffic and arms regulations. Conflict minerals becomes an issue, and this kind of all is being woven into business software today. Companies are expecting that to be something that they can get covered with their business software and kind of protect them from all of the different challenges that they have with product traceability or regulatory compliance. With reference to the increased needs of traceability, maybe you gentlemen have probably been seeing the same types of things. What do you think?
Yeah, I really believe so, Steve. Basically, as far as any quality inspections, any product specifications, anything that you want to involve around quality, whether or not it's corrective actions or nonconformances, and tracking those inside of an application, or just because of the fact that you have those regulatory requirements dumped on you. So it's definitely a key requirement.
I see a lot of businesses using this to maintain their different standards that they have to follow for the products that they're manufacturing, whether they're an AS9100 company or just simply the ISO standards that they've achieved and want to maintain on a yearly basis. They have to follow, certain guidelines that provide that type of information, traceability back to the sources.
No, that's really good. And this traceability trend is actually very closely related to the next trend. Supply chain. We'll call it not your father's supply chain here. So what does this mean? This is industry week here. Supply chains have seen a record recalls. And we know that, right? We hear about them almost monthly or weekly. And they always make headlines. The traditional responses of increased quality assurance and compliance steps actually make the problem of increasing complexity and bad accidents worse. They say processes and organizations need to be redesigned, sometimes radically, in order to simplify interactions. Companies address complexity already by reducing human input, increasing automation. Hey, we talked about that. Consolidating suppliers. Reshoring increasingly and simpler product designs. So, Bob, maybe I'm going to hand this off to you, not your father's supply chain, and rather than reading it, I'll just let you talk about it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Nick. Basically, the key to any integrated supply chain is collaboration and sharing and receiving very timely information with your suppliers and your customers. Whether that information is concerning demand planning, forecasting, or a variety of other requirements that are sitting out there. It could concern recalls. It could concern very technical information that's needed across the company. And sharing of that information can be done via websites and or customer or vendor portals, or by various other means. Some key advantages to an integrated supply chain can include things like shorter customer and supplier lead times, and that drives the customers and vendors and or suppliers to want to do business with you. So ultimately creating a better bottom line for your particular companies. Lower inventory cost can be another key aspect of this, and then better overall inventory management can also be a result of a very, very good integrated supply chain itself. And then basically faster and or quicker identification of process problems or bottlenecks and so on down the line. So the key to all of this is sharing the information, optimizing the value networks that you've set up, and making sure that that information flow is there. So any other thoughts from the rest of the panel?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of people who've been interested in CRM on the customer side, but we're starting to see those tools in our software be used to track communications on the vendor side. So they're using the exact same set of tools, maybe configured slightly differently, to track all the communications that they're having with their vendor, whether it's on-time performance or whether it's first article inspections, all of those kind of details, we're actually using some of what would be the CRM functionality to be able to follow that information. So I really look at that tool as being contact relationship management rather than customer relationship management, because I could use those tools to communicate with my customers, to be able to track things with my vendors, or even just to track people in my company's employees as far as tracking communications that are important to, supply chain and also the delivery of product and those types of things. I'm seeing a lot more cross-functional area use of our software, or even in other ERPs are doing the same thing to kind of track the communications on both sides. It's like you said before, Bob, it has a lot to do with collaboration and making things visible to people that, there is an issue or there isn't an issue, or, a delay is going to happen if you don't act now on this, and automation plays a big part in that too. So I see it all tied together.
And as we're talking about this trend, this supply chain trend, I keep thinking back to the our fourth trend, security, and how much more prominent and important that becomes when you have a expanding or growing supply chain. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Okay. Well, I just wanted to close up here with some parting thoughts, and I wanted to have a little time for Q&A at the end here. So first off, intelligent ERP, improved business processes, resource utilization. Second trend, big data. Basically, you're looking for people to run reports and pull data themselves, data when they want it. Actually, that was an exciting trend for me personally, because I see a bright future here. User experience with mobility and accessibility and responsiveness. Allow employees to access information and functions through mobile devices is a key here. Security is becoming more critical than ever, and also more complex to manage. Private cloud. The cloud is splintering. Now we're seeing the hybrid cloud. But the important part there is there's a cloud or a version or model of the cloud to suit your needs. Traceability 2.0, up and down the supply chain, looking for traceability, and it's becoming very important, and especially in today's world of regulations and recalls. Lastly, not your father's supply chain, about optimizing the value network, real-time decisions, and e-business plays into that. So here, this is real quick. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Macola 10. We have a demo next week, and we think these trends are very important, and we'd like to just talk more to you if you're not familiar with Macola 10. And might see how some of these trends are playing into our vision and our product as well. So we have Macola 10 can help your organization with manufacturing, project management, distribution, quality management, all the way through customer relationship management. We believe it's we like to say it's an all-inclusive solution to facilitate most of the, hopefully all or most of your organization's needs here. And I'm not going to read through this, but you might see a couple of things in here that might apply to your organization. Again, we'd like to invite you to next week's demo. That is next week's demo is February 22nd of Macola 10. It's at 2 o'clock. Also, we've created an infographic with this same content. And it'll be bigger than what it shows on the screen. You'll be able to actually see it, but we'll include that in a link, as well as tomorrow's a link via an email sent tomorrow that'll have a recording of today's webinar in it, and you can download the infographic, or take if you want to listen to the recording, you can do that. If you want to forward it, please do. They might, your friends, your colleagues might actually thank you for receiving it. Also, we have additional resources, ebooks, other infographics, white papers on our website at Macola.com. So we invite you to go and visit the resource section there. And also, one last thing, I wanted to remind everyone that we do have our annual conference, Evolve 2017. It's in New Orleans, April 18th through 21st. If you would like to learn more or would want to register, go to www.macolaevolve.com to register and take advantage of the early bird discount.
I know we're pushing on time here. Should we take one or two Q&As, or should we answer all of them via email?
We can do a couple here real quick, and then we'll see what we have time for. So here's I guess it's not really a question. It's we have over 100 project manage. Oh, by the way, guys, if you do have questions, you can add them through the control panel here, and you can type them in, and I'll read them off for everyone to answer. So we have over 100 project managers, and our project managers would like to see more automation in their workflows. Again, not a question, but I thought that was interesting. So thanks for sharing that for me. That's something that we definitely see is a trending topic itself, automating the workflow here.
I'll take that next one. The next one is from Tom. Is there a trend to eliminate custom screens in the future of Macola, i.e. are we getting rid of Flex? And Derek, I'm sure you'll probably have you want to weigh in on this one too. I'll answer it and say, no, we're going the opposite direction. I want to give people the ability to customize. I just don't want to, or, let's use the word configure there. Customize has a meaning or an undertone of, you're sort of cracking things open and opening up code and making yours different. No one says I'm going to customize, or when you think of customization, you don't customize your Google homepage or your Facebook app, right? I mean, you're working within the confines of what you have available. And so I want to give huge flexibility, but I want to do that through tools and APIs and web front ends that don't require opening up the code, don't require editing something that came with the system. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, because one of the headaches of ERP, as a lot of people on the call well know, is when you upgrade things, the more customizations you have, the harder it is to upgrade, the harder it is to move from one version to another. So I actually want to increase our flexibility. I'm just not looking to do it with sort of the old school methodology. So maybe that was a roundabout answer, but Derek, I'll let you answer that as well.
So we are actually thinking a lot about that at Macola. We're investing a lot in trying to create these kind of loosely coupled modules that can be put in, and like Dan referred to, that you get in this idea of version lock, that you get a customization, you can't upgrade because you're afraid it'll break your customization. What we want to do is give people the best of both worlds. So you can have some customized components on a page, but you can still upgrade and be assured that you're not going to break everything in the world. So I think that it depends on how you define custom pages, but yes, there's definitely a move towards configuration over customization, but we still want to allow completely customized components on pages. And as far as the question about, did somebody ask about flexibility?
Well, yeah, the Flex module.
Yeah, so Flex will be going away just with our web-based interfaces, not supported on the platform anymore, because as you move from desktop to web-based, you just can't use the Flex stuff anymore. But we'll give alternative ways to do the same types of things that Flex did. So.
Okay, well, thank you, Derek. And guys, I'm sad to say we are out of time here. So any other questions, I'll try to follow up with and follow up with you individually to address those. But again, I just want to thank everyone for attending and sharing your time with us. If you have questions, send them to me, nick.mears@exact.com. After the webinar, we'll have a short survey for you. We'd love to get your feedback on it and hear your thoughts on it. And look for tomorrow for an email with the infographic and a link to today's recorded webinar. Thanks again, everyone, for sharing your time with us, and have a great afternoon.